How does a company that controls 40% of the global market, a king that conquered every corner of the earth, simply vanish into the shadows of history? In the mid-2000s, Nokia wasn't just a phone company. It was the gold standard of human connection. Their profits were staggering, their reach was infinite, and their dominance felt like a law of nature. Yet, while their boardrooms were toasted with champagne, a silent revolution was brewing in Silicon Valley. Most people think Nokia died because they couldn't build a smartphone, but the truth is far more chilling. They died because they were too successful to change. They were trapped in the golden handcuffs of their own legacy. This isn't just a story about a failing gadget. It is a psychological thriller about corporate pride, the fear of the unknown, and the brutal reality of the tech world, where the biggest threat isn't your competitor, it's your own reflection in the mirror. Prepare to witness the rise and the spectacular, soul-crushing fall of the king of mobile. To understand the fall, we must first understand the grit of the climb. Nokia didn't start with microchips. In the year 1865, it was a humble paper mill in Finland. For over a century, this company was a shapeshifter. They made rubber boots, car tires, and even gas masks. But in the 1990s, they made a pivot that would change the world. Led by the visionary Jorma Ollila, Nokia bet everything on a new digital standard called GSM. While the rest of the world was still tethered to landlines, Nokia was dreaming of a world without wires. They didn't just join the mobile revolution, they authored it. By the time the iconic Nokia 1100 launched, they were selling hundreds of millions of devices. They were the masters of hardware and the kings of logistics. Their phones were indestructible, their battery life was legendary, and the Nokia tune was a melody heard in every city on the planet. They had achieved the impossible. They made the mobile phone a basic human necessity, and in doing so, they became untouchable. Or so they thought. Every empire has its Waterloo. For Nokia, it was January 9th, 2007. On a stage in San Francisco, Steve Jobs pulled a piece of glass from his pocket. The iPhone wasn't just a phone, it was a computer, an internet communicator, and a music player all in one. In the headquarters in Espoo, Finland, the reaction wasn't panic, it was mockery. Nokia engineers looked at the iPhone and saw a toy. It had no tactile keyboard, it was fragile, it barely worked on 2G networks, and the battery life was a joke compared to a Nokia 3310. They looked at the hardware specs and felt safe, but they missed the point entirely. Apple wasn't selling a phone, they were selling an ecosystem. They were selling software. While Nokia was obsessed with how the phone was built, Apple was obsessed with how the phone was used. It was the first crack in the armor, a shift from the physical to the digital that Nokia's hardware-centric brain simply could not process. The king was still focused on the crown, while the ground beneath the throne was turning into quicksand. Nokia did have an operating system. It was called Symbian. For years, it was the most popular OS in the world. But Symbian was a relic of the past, a sprawling, messy labyrinth of code that was never meant for the touchscreen era. To change a simple feature in Symbian, engineers had to wade through millions of lines of archaic programming. It was like trying to renovate a Victorian mansion while the foundation was rotting. Meanwhile, Google had entered the fray with Android. While Nokia struggled to get Symbian to work with a finger swipe, Android was spreading like wildfire, offering a modern, flexible platform to every manufacturer on Earth. Inside Nokia, a culture of fear began to take root. Middle managers were afraid to tell the executives that Symbian was dying. They polished their reports, hid the bugs, and pretended everything was fine. This organizational paralysis was the true poison. By the time they realized that Symbian was a dead end, it was too late. The developers were leaving, the apps were being built for iOS and Android, and Nokia was left holding a map to a world that no longer existed. In September 2010, Nokia hired Stephen Elop, a former Microsoft executive, to save the company. A few months later, Elop issued one of the most famous memos in business history, the burning platform. He told his employees that Nokia was standing on a burning oil rig, surrounded by a sea of fire. Their only choice? To jump into the freezing, unknown waters. That jump was a partnership with Microsoft. Nokia abandoned their own internal projects and bet the entire company on the Windows Phone platform. It was a move born of desperation. The logic was simple. Combine Nokia's world-class hardware with Microsoft's software expertise to create a third ecosystem. But the market didn't want a third ecosystem. The Windows Phone lacked the apps, the momentum, and the soul of its competitors. The Lumia series was beautiful, colorful, and well-built, but it was a ghost town. With every passing quarter, Nokia's market share didn't just slip, it plummeted. The brand that wants to find the future was now a footnote, a cautionary tale of a company that waited too long to burn its own bridges. By 2013, the end was inevitable. Nokia's mobile phone division, the heart and soul of the company, was sold to Microsoft for $7.2 billion. At the press conference announcing the deal, the CEO reportedly said, "We didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost." It was a heartbreaking admission of defeat. The company that pioneered the very concept of the mobile world had been swallowed by it. Microsoft's ownership of Nokia's devices was a disaster, leading to multi-billion-dollar write-downs and the eventual disappearance of the Nokia name from smartphones for years. Thousands of jobs were lost, and a piece of Finnish national identity was shattered. But in the ashes, a new Nokia began to emerge. They didn't die completely. They pivoted back to their roots, focusing on network infrastructure and 5G technology. Today, Nokia is a powerhouse in the hidden world of telecommunications, but the phones we carry in our pockets are no longer theirs. The king had lost his crown, but he had at least survived to tell the tale.
The story of Nokia is the ultimate lesson in the Darwinism of technology. It teaches us that no matter how big you are, no matter how much cash you have in the bank, you are never safe from the next big idea. Innovation is not a destination, it is a relentless, never-ending race. Nokia was the master of the world they created, but they were tourists in the world that came next. They prioritized hardware over software, stability over agility, and internal politics over customer reality. But let's not remember them only for their failure. Because of Nokia, the world became connected. They brought the internet to the palm of our hand before we even knew we wanted it. They built the foundation that Apple and Google would eventually build their empires upon. The unique business insight here: success is often the enemy of innovation. If you aren't willing to cannibalize your own products, someone else will do it for you. Nokia didn't fail because they were bad at business. They failed because they were too good at a business that was already over. Connecting people was their slogan, and in the end, they connected us all to a future they simply couldn't inhabit.
I hope this deep dive gave you a new perspective on the strategies and the relentless mindset behind these global icons. If you enjoy deconstructing business empires and tech legends in this tech archive style, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. That way, you will never miss a new blueprint of history. For those of you ready to explore more boardroom coups and technological breakthroughs, I have handpicked 2 videos for you right here on the screen. Click one to keep watching. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.